So doctrine of lapse and how it helped in the expansion of British power is the first topic that we will be discussing today. So this is a photograph of Dalhousie. Okay, so we all have talked about Dalhousie, so it is interesting to look at him also as a very young man who came to India with a very high ambition, and he is considered to be one of the greatest Governor General of India from the British perspective. Okay, so the British perspective or the British historians definitely treat Lord Dalhousie as one of the greatest Governor General of India. Probably you can understand the meaning of that when I say it is not from the Indian perspective, because not because he was great for the India, he was great for the Britain to establish their administration in India, and he is considered to be slightly ruthless, and he was very ambitious, and he did not stop or hesitate before fulfilling his ambition in India. And he was not very much hesitant to say that he is an annexationist. So he is also referred as a great annexationist in India, right? So his famous policies were helpful for him in order to pursue the policy of annexation in India. So you all understand the word annexation. Annexation means capturing the territories and bringing it under the administrative control of the British. It is not about subordinate position. It is not about getting a kind of token revenue or annual tribute. It is about annexing the territories itself so that the local ruling family existence itself comes to an end. So that is what I'd say when I mean as annexation. Okay, right? So there are many territories that were conquered by him through direct warfare. One is Punjab. So Anglo-Sikh War happened during his period. He was very successful in defeating and annexing Punjab after Anglo-Sikh wars. Then Burma, Lower Burma region was also annexed by Lord Dalhousie through direct warfare. So in addition to that, he was looking for strategies to annex territories in India. Okay, so that is where he cleverly came out with a strategy that is referred as a policy of doctrine of lapse. Can any one of you unmute and give me an answer regarding doctrine of lapse?
Ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am,
Rahul.
like doctrine, yes, ma'am. Doctrine of lapse was a policy proposed by Lord Dalhousie, in which any Indian ruler who do not have a legitimate son as an heir, then their kingdom will lapse into the British dominion and into India. So
Correct.
it was their policy of expanding their
Territories in
position
India.
in India.
Excellent. So Rahul was perfectly correct. So the strategy that Dalhousie is going to use would be what we are going to discuss in 3 parts. Okay. So that definitely helped the British to set up their imperialism in India. And Lord Dalhousie is also credited for modernization of administration in India. So Mr. W. Hunter, who wrote the biography of Dalhousie, says that it is because of Dalhousie British rule existed in India. He is credited for conquest. He is credited for consolidation. He is also credited for development. So that is the introduction regarding Dalhousie. So what is this doctrine of lapse, and what is the theory that India was following so far? Okay. So according to Indian laws, whether it was Hindu law or Islamic law, having a child is a personal decision of the family. Okay. So if the ruler or the king does not have a male son, so the ruler, the parents have the discretion to adopt a child, and they will conduct a ceremony of adoption, and the adopted son can become the next ruler, the future ruler. So the adopted person would have all personal and political rights, whatever they want to transfer property, whatever control they want to give it to, the adopted son will get all the rights as that of a natural born son. Okay. So that is what was the Indian tradition. Indian rulers, if they did not have a son, they used to adopt a child, and they would make a formal ceremony and make a formal announcement giving all their rights to the adopted son. But now Lord Dalhousie cleverly is saying that all these Indian kingdoms are existing because of the mercy shown by the British government, and you are allowed to exist as long as you have a proper legal heir to the throne. If you do not have a son, then you do not have the right to adopt by yourself and make the adopted son as your future ruler of your kingdom. Only the adoption will become legal only if it is authorized or only if it is permitted by the British Raj. So what is he saying? The Indian states do not have the right to adopt a child because the Indian states are existing due to the mercy shown by the British administrator. So that is the logic that he is trying to bring out. So all Indian states may not have been defeated by the Britishers. So he has to categorize the type of states and the right of adoption. So according to Doctrine of Lapse, if the king dies without a legal heir to the throne, then the kingdom will come under the British rule, right? So he's making a complicated system where it is going to be difficult for the adopted son to come to power. Okay, so when Lord Dalhousie becomes Governor General, he is going to make Doctrine of Lapse as a strategy to expand the power and influence of the British rule in India. So he is justifying the state by categorizing Indian states into three types: creation, dependent, and independent states. So he's dividing Indian states into three categories: creation, dependent, independent states. So what does it mean? Creation means these are the states which did not exist before the British rule in India. That means what? These have been newly created by the Britishers. So earlier, larger states were split into 2 or 3 parts. So some of these smaller states are the creation of the British. So these states do not have the right to adopt heir to the throne. Right? So these are the states which were created by partitioning earlier larger states. Okay, so these states are creations of the British. So British actually are the owners of the state. As soon as the king dies without any legal heir to the throne, then you find the state will be back to the British control. So succession should never be allowed to go by adoption. So that is the rule for the creation state. So that is the first category of state, creation state. So that's number one. Okay. Number two would be the dependent state. What are the dependent states? These states are existing because of the support that is shown by the Britishers. These states are existing because of the support shown by the Britishers. Therefore, they can continue to exist only with the permission of the British. So, if they have to adopt a child, they have to get permission from the British, and then only the adopted child can become legal heir to the throne. So, they are not saying absolute no. For creation, it is an absolute no. For adoption, for the dependent state, it is not an absolute no. Permission has to be sought, and based on the permission, the state can adopt a child or not. So that is the situation. Then the third would be independent state. That means these states have never been defeated by the Britishers. So then these states are not considered to be dependents or the creation. So these states can continue to exist or continue to adopt children according to their previous existing customs and regulations. So Britishers are very much particular about the custom of the land, right? So that way they are telling, if it is your custom to adopt a child, you carry on because you are an independent state and you are no longer, you are not at all connected to the English East India Company. So that is the three types of categorization he is making regarding the states in India. So very, very clever. So the larger states which could be independent state, they are very few in number. British did not want to annoy them at all. So they are leaving them out. They are not bothering them. Whereas newly created dependent states are all considered to be open for game, right? So East India Company can try to annex those territories. So Dalhousie's Doctrine of Lapse would be applicable during that period. Another doubt which all of you should have in your mind is, how come suddenly most of the rulers are issueless? Most of the rulers do not have children, right? Don't know. As one historian rightly says, unfortunately, at that time, there were many Indian rulers who were issueless. That means they did not have legal heir to the throne, because some of them were minor rulers, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, 17-year-old. So they have not given birth to a child at all. Okay. So, and there were rulers who do not, very old men who did not have any children, male children. It's not like that they didn't have any child, they didn't have a male child. So earlier days, their brothers or their cousins or anybody can come to power, but now that is going to become a bigger loss. Okay, right? So see the list of the states that were annexed using this doctrine of lapse. Okay, so these are all states that were annexed by the Dalhousie's period. From this is in alphabetical order. Okay, Tanjore, Surat, Satara, Punjab, Oudh. So there were so many states in India. Jhansi, you might have heard of Jhansi, right? So there are Nagpur, Jaitpur, Jaintia. So there are a lot of states in India which were considered to be issueless states, dependent states, creation states, and they were all going to be annexed one after another during the period of Lord Dalhousie. So Satara, Jhansi, Berar, Awadh, Nagpur, Kanpur. 6 states I'm repeating, because you need to have at least 6 states you should remember. These are the 6 states that were annexed by Dalhousie, and these 6 states were responsible for the revolt of 1857 as well. Why? They all lost the territories to Lord Dalhousie. So the annexationist policy of Lord Dalhousie will lead to revolt of 1857. Okay, right? So Satara, Jhansi, Berar, Awadh, Nagpur and Kanpur were all old states with great legacies. So they wanted to exist. They wanted to continue to exist in India. But due to Dalhousie's doctrine of lapse, and they will have justified reasons that Dalhousie was not acting according to the ethos of law. He violated the law and he has annexed those territories. That is why they would go for a revolt in 1857. So in 2-mark question answer, we may ask you to name at least 4 to 6 states that were annexed by Lord Dalhousie. You have all these states to remember. Out of that, these are 6 important states which also participated in the revolt of 1857. So I am just giving a case study of Satara. In 1848, the ruler of Satara was Appa Sahib. He died without any heir to the throne, and he had already adopted a son, but Britishers were not consulted before adoption. Okay, so as soon as Appa Sahib dies, Lord Dalhousie will say that Satara is one of the dependent state. Therefore, they do not have the permission to make the adopted son the future ruler. He will annex the state. So Satara would be annoyed, and that would be the reason for joining the revolt in 1857. Another example, Jhansi. Jhansi is one of the largest kingdoms in Bundelkhand region. It was held by the Marathas. Okay, in 1817, the Peshwa in Pune gave up all the rights of Bundelkhand to English East India Company. So that is why Jhansi, which was part of the Bundelkhand, was considered to be creation according to the Britishers. So Raja of Jhansi was Gangadhar Rao, and he was married to Lakshmi Bai. So Raja of Jhansi, Gangadhar Rao, died in the year 1853. So according to the Hindu traditions, they already have adopted a child to the throne, and it was currently administered by the Queen Lakshmi Bai. But Dalhousie refused to give the right to Rani Lakshmi Bai, even though Rani Lakshmi Bai and their administrators have written letters to the Britishers talking about the adoption or asking for permission for adoption. Dalhousie refuses to grant that right and declared Jhansi was annexed by English East India Company. So that is the story why Jhansi would join the revolt of 1857. Another interesting case study is Oudh region. Wajid Ali Shah was the Nawab of the Oudh. And it was believed that this person led a very luxurious life, and he was not taking care of the administration. So who is telling all these things? The British resident who was in the Lucknow region is reporting to the British government that this Nawab of Oudh is not taking care of his own people. Okay, you already know after the Battle of Buxar, right? Oudh became part of the British administration, but directly it was not announced. Annual tribute was collected from Awadh region. But now, when Wajid Ali Shah is reported to have not taken care of his own people, Dalhousie was waiting for such an opportunity, and then he is sending his men to annex the territory. So that way, Dalhousie is not, he's just looking for chances for annexation of Indian territories. Okay, even though already the revenue from the Oudh was collected by the British, it was not annexed earlier, but during Dalhousie's period, it was annexed. Okay, then Birar. Nizam of Birar had bought lot of loans from the company. Okay, why he bought loans? He had to maintain a large contingent of British soldiers in his state. That is one of the conditions if you are a feudatory, if you are a creator state, if you are a dependent state. He was not able to maintain large number of soldiers. So Britishers themselves are offering him loan, and then they expected him to repay the loan. Okay, so but when the Birar Nawab was not able to repay the loan, the location was annexed by Dalhousie in 1853. Okay, right. Then Raja of Nagpur died in 1853. Before his death, he has already guided whom to adopt. His wife was in the process of undertaking the adoption. Yashwant Rao was adopted by the Rani. This adoption was perfectly valid according to Hindu law, but Dalhousie did not recognize the adopted son of Raja of Nagpur. Therefore, Nagpur was annexed by Dalhousie. So cases like this go and go and go, whether it is about Sambalpur or Jaitpur or Bhagat or Udaipur. None of these rulers had natural throne. Therefore, you find that Dalhousie is looking for an opportunity to capture these territories, and that way expansion of the British power in India is taking place. Okay, then a titular sovereignty. That means what? Some of these states were actually not independent, they were dependent states only, but the local ruler enjoyed the title of Maharaja or Raja. For example, Carnatic region. After Carnatic wars, Nawab of Arcad was only enjoying the title of Nawab of Arcad, but the real power was in the hands of the British only. Same way, Raja of Tanjore was also having only a title, but he was not actually having the power. Pune Peshwa was also only having a title, not actual power. Bahadur Shah II was also not having any power, he was only having a title. So, Dalhousie says, without any administrative duty, if you are having a title, you no longer require that title. So that means what? These territories are directly annexed and will be brought under the control of the British rule. Carnatic region, Tanjore, Pune, as well as the Mughal territories. So that way you find Dalhousie is very intelligent to bring a lot of territories under his control, right? So there has been a lot of criticism regarding this doctrine of lapse because according to Dalhousie, it's very transparent. He can justify any of these annexation, but many are questionable annexation only. Okay, that's point number one. Point number two, these states could be annexed simply stating you are dependent state, because there is no document that says you are a created state or a dependent state. Who's giving the stamp? It is a British who is issuing the stamp, and they would happily issue that stamp so that they can annex any territory. Okay, according to the British law, if anybody has a grievance, okay, they just have to go to the court and file an appeal. We already know the condition of court system where the delay of procedures is equal to injustice, right? So in a foreign court of law, when we do not understand the language, when we do not understand the law, it was very difficult for these rulers to appeal, but they went on appeal. Okay, but these appeals were not taken into consideration at a faster pace, and many times these appeals were not considered at all by the government. So Dalhousie, whenever he goes for any recommendation from the court will immediately issue an imperial order, whereas when Indian rulers go to the same court, it is not going to happen faster. Okay, right. But in a later, when the case judgments and all are coming, states of Bhagat, states of Udaipur were all restored, saying that unjustified annexation had taken place. That is how Raja of Bhagat and Raja of Udaipur will remain independent till India's independence. Okay. Why? Even though Dalhousie has annexed it, they went to court of appeal again and again and again. And then they saw to it that Dalhousie's unjust occupation was released from the court. So it became possible for few of these states, but not all of the states. So that's how you find a doctrine of lapse was the important instrument used by the British government in order to annex territories in India. So, what is the impact of this doctrine of lapse?